Suffocating, relentless, and soul-crushing, all terms we fear in real life, but would crave to see out of our NFL defenses. It's early, but so far the Chargers defense is starting to look like it could make its mark as one of the all-time great stone walls in NFL history. And Monday night against the Raiders, two young players made their case as the next defensive superstars. What's up, everyone? I'm Sam Peña, a Bolt fan in the Berg for Chargers Digest, where we talk about all things Lightning. Today, we're talking about some of the key takeaways from the Chargers' Week 2 victory against the Las Vegas Raiders. It's always nice to win. It's even sweeter when you beat the Raiders. So, let's talk about it. I think the first takeaway from this game is the impressive performance by the defense, but I want to break it down a little bit more and start with, I think, the two stars of the defense for the Chargers, Daiyan Henley and Tarheeb still. Daiyan Henley is someone who is on pace right now to be an All-Pro. If you guys remember, when Henley was drafted by the Chargers, there were a lot of people on analytics Twitter who were very excited to see what he could do in a Brandon Staley defense. That didn't materialize because Staley didn't use him. Well, Jesse Minter comes to town, and all of a sudden, he's getting the most out of Daiyan's play. He's a little bit of an undersized linebacker, but he's one of the best coverage linebackers in the NFL, and he's just a sound, secure tackler. And last night, his performance was even more impressive because, just like Mekhi Becton the week before, we didn't know if Henley was going to play. Daniel Popper reported that he had 101 fever before the game, and it looked like if he was going to play, that he wasn't going to be his full self. Well, like Michael Jordan in his flu game, Henley delivered one of the all-time performances, having 10 tackles, a sack, 2 tackles for loss, and an interception on the very first play of the game. He was everywhere for the Chargers, keeping the Raiders in check and limiting their rushing offense. He is someone who they have to keep an eye on in the future for. I'm glad to see that he's a captain this year, glad to see he has the green dot, and I think this is just the start of big things for Henley. But the second person I want to shout out is Tarheeb Still. We already knew Still was someone who was a fantastic coverage corner. He was a steal for the Chargers in the 6th round, but what really impressed me last night was his ability in run defense. He had 3 run stops last night and was consistently just coming up and making the tackle, which is something you don't see out of a lot of corners in the NFL. I think a lot of corners these days, they're guys who pride themselves on just being able to shut down opposing receivers, but Still is more than that. He's someone who's willing to come up and do his part in the running game, which is having a big impact on the Chargers, and one of the reasons why Geno Smith just had nowhere to go with the football last night. And that leads to my second takeaway, which is the Chargers are limiting the big plays. This is something that surprised me last night because if you guys remember in my video yesterday, I thought Geno Smith was going to have an explosive night because I thought he was going to get a few of those deep shots down the field, especially if the Chargers seemed to have some communication issues week 1 against Kansas City. That didn't happen. When you look at Geno, he had 219 passing yards past 10 yards in week 1. Last night against the Chargers, he didn't complete a single pass past 10 yards down the field. The Chargers completely eliminated any big plays out of this Raiders offense. That too high coverage cell was just making life hell for Geno Smith from the start of the game, and it was aided by my third takeaway of the night, which is the interior pass rush for the Chargers. I think on the negative side, you can see the Bolts really didn't generate much of an edge rush last night as soon as Khalil Mack went out of the game. Caleb Murphy and Tui Pelotu are two people who are going to have to pick their game up as the weeks progress here. But from the interior, the Chargers jumped on the Raiders and never let up the entire night. They took advantage of the fact that the Raiders starter, Jackson Powers-Johnson, was out of the game, and Jamari Caldwell was just phenomenal. Deshaun Hand was phenomenal, and Teair Tart, he's someone who has quietly been filling the shoes of Poona Ford quite well for the Chargers these first 2 weeks. I think the Bolts defense has come to play this year, and the bad news out of this is we're probably going to lose Jesse Minter. He almost certainly is going to be a head coach somewhere else next season. But for now, Chargers fans, we need to just enjoy what he's doing for this Bolts defense. They have been, in my opinion, the best defense in the NFL for the first 2 weeks of the season, despite some communication issues they had against KC in that first game of the year. But I think this is just the start for them. I think what was really impressive was just how they were able to consistently get the ball carriers to the ground. There really were only a few missed tackles throughout the game from Derwin James, of all people. I don't think that's going to happen often. This Chargers defense is just continuing to rise, and I'm excited to see the heights they can reach. Moving on, though, to some of the offensive takeaways from this game. The offense was a little bit more of a mixed bag, but the first thing I want to start off with is the Chargers running game. This is something that's going to be a work in progress throughout the season. They continue to struggle to be able to generate any sort of a push along the offensive line to be able to create holes for Hampton and Harris. I know a lot of people are surprised that Greg Roman has been passing the football so much. In fact, the Chargers lead the league in terms of pass happiness in the NFL this season so far. But I think it's because Roman knows they are struggling to run the ball efficiently right now. And the loss of Rashawn Slater did more than just impact their pass protection. It severely is hampering their ability to create any push in the running game. When you look at expected points over average, the Chargers have one of the best offenses when it comes to passing, but they are dead last, 32nd in the league for EPA when it comes to their rushing offense. And it's not because they're not just running the football, it's because anytime they try to do that, they are consistently having contact behind the line of scrimmage. We talked about it against Kansas City, and it was the case once again against the Raiders. The Chargers are struggling to be able to keep defenders out of the backfield. But the second takeaway of the game is, I think, one of the more positive ones, which is Justin Herbert continues to showcase why he's an MVP candidate this year. Week 1 against the Chiefs, he was obviously phenomenal. He barely missed that entire game. Week 2 against the Raiders, I think he really only had 2 bad plays the entire night. The first one was when he misled McConkey on what could have been a touchdown early in the game, and the second one was that near interception he threw near the end of the game. Outside of those 2 plays, he was phenomenal. He was consistently figuring out exactly what coverage the Raiders were in and getting the football to the open receiver. I think this is just the start for Herbert, and I have a few more points I want to make on him here. And I just want to go on a little bit of a rant here for a second because I'm really frustrated seeing all the people on TV, the Nick Wrights and the Stephen A. Smiths of the world saying things like, oh, Herbert, he's finally making the leap this year. Herbert is finally putting it all together. He's finally taking the next step. He looks different. No, Herbert doesn't look different this year. Herbert has always been this great. He's been great the moment he stepped onto the football field and has been elite for years. You guys just weren't paying attention, and he didn't have a defense that could back him up and win those games. Here are the defensive ranks that Herbert has had since he's entered the league. They have been 23rd, 29th, 21st, and 24th in points allowed. In terms of yards allowed, they were 10th, 23rd, 20th, and 28th. During that time span, Herbert has been 6th, 2nd, and was on pace for 8th in yards per season. He also has received MVP votes in 2 seasons. He was on pace to be one of the comeback players of the year last year and has been voted twice to Pro Bowls. Herbert has always been the truth. You all just bought into the lies. It's time for everyone to wake up and realize the truth. Justin Herbert has been and is an elite quarterback. The final takeaway I have from this game is the Chargers' pass blocking. This is something I was incredibly concerned about coming into this season after the loss of Rashawn Slater, and I have been pleasantly surprised to see that the Chargers' offensive line is answering the call when it comes to pass blocking. I want you to take a look at some of the numbers right now the Chargers have in terms of pass blocking efficiency. Trey Pipkins was actually tops in the league yesterday. He didn't allow a single pressure. He's someone who's been up and down his entire career with the Chargers. He finally is, I think, reaching a little bit of that potential and being able to keep opposing pass rushers in check. I know we got a lot of help from Hampton and Najee Harris with chips, but Pipkins did an excellent job yesterday. I think it's only fair that we give him that credit. Zion Johnson has also been excellent so far as a pass blocker for the Chargers. Johnson was obviously someone who hasn't lived up to that first round billing, but he had an 82.8 pass blocking grade yesterday from Pro Football Focus, which is no small feat going against pass rushers like Max Crosby and Malcolm Koonce, who were running a lot of twists inside, getting him matched up against those interior offensive linemen for the Chargers. Johnson did very well. Joe Alt obviously is phenomenal, as we all know. Disley and Najee Harris also played very well in the limited roles they had as pass protectors. Really, the only one who I thought struggled a little bit was Mekhi Becton, and even with Becton, I think that's something that's not going to continue to happen throughout the year because we've seen Becton be a very solid pass blocker. So overall, I think this Chargers offensive line is kind of performing above the expectations I had for them this season, and they have faced very good pass rushers. Week 1, they faced Chris Jones and George Karlaftis. Week 2, they faced Max Crosby. And in both games, they were able to give Herbert enough time to be able to deliver the football. And I think that leads to a point that I want to make with the Chargers running game. I know people have been talking negatively about Hampton because he hasn't been making the impact in fantasy that they were wanting him to, but I just want to say this. Unlike Ashton Genty, Hampton has proven his value for the Chargers in that he has been excellent in pass protection so far to start this year. He's been shipping quite a bit and giving the Chargers just a few extra ticks of a second to be able to make plays down the field, and Greg Roman has been very aggressive at those deep throws this season. I think Hampton deserves a little bit of love for that, and here's to hoping that we'll see a lot more from him as the year moves on. I know it's just 2 weeks into the season and there's still a lot of football left to be played, but you can't help but be impressed and encouraged by the way the Chargers have played to start this season. Not only are they 2-0 while the Chiefs are 0-2, they have both of those wins against divisional opponents, which could lead to big dividends down the road if there is a divisional battle. We'll see if things progress, but for now, I think we should be proud of our Bolts and Blue. Thank you all so much for watching Charger Nation. I would really appreciate it if you guys could like and subscribe. We're trying to build this channel from the ground up here. And as always, Bolt Nation, remember, Bolt up.